Welcome to a special Mantality podcast series called Mate Therapy. Mate Therapy came about during lockdown when we were only allowed to meet up with one person for a walk outside. Right, laugh, eh? I'd meet up with Jon Bell, and now Jon isn't your typical type of mate. Yes, he is your bald-headed, tattooed covered, Alan Partridge loving type of guy, one that you'd definitely go for a beer with, but on top of that, you know that I love to speak about my feelings. There's the added bonus that he is a therapist. For me, at that time, I was having to deal with a brain injury and the ever-looming knowledge that I was going to have to retire from professional sport at 27 years old. Many times, I'd meet with Jon and I'd feel heavy, I'd feel certain of my misery. I'd feel unconfident and I'd judge myself all the time. And at times I'd wonder that question that we've all wondered at some point in our lives, why me? Chatting with Jon cleared up those thoughts and emotions that kept me stuck and unhappy. I'm lucky enough to have Jon Bell as a mate. The downside is that I can't have him as a counsellor, but you guys could. During this podcast series, we are inviting you into the types of mate therapy that I got with Jon during the pandemic. A lot of the times men think that therapy is opening a can of worms. This podcast series will show you that it isn't. And I hope that you guys benefit from feeling a weight lifted. And maybe you think, oh, it's not just me that feels like this or thinks like this. Or maybe you thrive off the deep conversations like us. As George Bernard Shaw said, those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. As always, these podcasts are for you. Listen, give us feedback, share with someone that you think would benefit, and if you believe in what we do at Mantality, rate the podcast because this helps us continue breaking the stigma on an even bigger scale. And without further ado, I bring you my old mucker, Jon Bell.
Yes, Jonathan, how are you doing, my son?
Very well, Stevie boy. Yes, I am good. Good to be with you.
Good to see you, my friend, my therapist, almost. Not allowed that, is it? Can't do that.
We surf a fine line, but ethically, for the record, we do okay.
Yeah. Yes, I love it, mate. So I'm coming at you from New York. You're stuck in Old York, is that right?
I'm in Old York, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, that's fine, mate, that's fine. But this come at a good time for me, mate. This has come at a good time for me because I've had surfed the wave of coming to New York and feeling like everything's class. The world is amazing. And the opportunities here are incredible, meeting some amazing people. But a couple of days, I've been slipped into the hole that I can slip into sometimes in terms of feeling like I'm a piece of shit. Yeah. Not in a bad way. I'm not a piece of shit to other people, but it's a theme that I sometimes slip into, over these last 2 years with the head injury and with just going through change and transition. So having your friendly face pop up on Zoom and be there for me is good.
If this is a solution, I am extraordinarily concerned about the problem, but thank you very much.
Yeah, I know. Well, you're doing well, mate. You're doing well. I guess that's why people come to see you and it works.
Yeah.
Just simply seeing you. Exactly. So, so mate, great to see you. And this podcast is a few different things that I want to chat about. And I think it makes sense to dive in at change and transition and what that means and what that is for people. You've been through it recently, changing into becoming a full-time therapist and transitioning into that life. But change comes in everything, doesn't it? Change comes in relationships, breakups, old jobs, comes in losing faculties, losing, being able to play a game, being able to walk properly. Being able to do anything that I guess wasn't, is not the same as what you were before. So, how do you look at change as a therapist? How do you look at change as someone who might help people through a process of transition?
I think the really important thing to establish at the beginning of any sort of change is whether that change is by choice or by force. And so people have had to go through change that they didn't ask for. versus change that they're absolutely wanted to be part of, wanted to be involved in. It's really important because, you know, I work with a variety of clients for whom change is all kinds of different things depending on their circumstances. And as you're talking, I was thinking like clients, I work with gay clients on a number of occasions who are coming out to their family. Change is extraordinarily exciting and nerve-wracking and euphoric and anxiety-driving and all those different kind of things. And then, you know, as human beings, we've got a huge ability to normalize. You guys are just over in New York. Yeah, you have that absolute wonderful euphoric moment of possibility and awakening. Mm-hmm. And then we normalize it. And I think there's a huge amount to be said before we get into change here about that anticlimactic feeling. About that, wow, great. But we cannot run on that kind of adrenaline because it's not normal. We'll have a heart attack. You know, not every day is Christmas morning. And so it's really important to understand that initial feeling of change, particularly if it's self-governed, particularly if it's revelatory, particularly if we are announcing ourselves to a world or to a possibility or to, you know, circumstances that hitherto have been outside of our reach and we're going to go out and get it. A couple of things, that euphoria is not going to last forever. And also, let's be honest, apart from us, people only have the capacity to give a limited amount of shit. It's really important. I learned that living in London. No one cares about you. Get on with your life. No one will look at you.
If you don't move, if you don't do something, you will wither away and die.
You know, you used to spend ages in front of the mirror making sure you looked all right, nicely armoured going to work, and you could have walked on the tube with your bits out and no one would have cared because no one's talking to you if you tackle out. So, like, the change in the subjective feelings that you have going through it often are very personal, only relate to your own feelings and prejudices and worries about that. Ultimately, a lot of people will have to work really hard to empathise with how you're feeling about it because from the outside looking in, they'll go, that's okay, you can do that. Once again, it comes down to the model of how other people perceive us. If we're a rescuer and someone who constantly presents that sense of being in control, it's really hard to be vulnerable and hard to put your hand up and say, I'm finding this really difficult because people have already decided how they're going to see you. Yeah. So going through change is a really important part of that. Surrounding yourself with people who understand that lived experience, hence therapy. People go, yeah, all right, I don't know what to do with this, and say, yeah, it's okay to feel really, really, really shitty. You're where you're meant to be on any process. You know further forward, you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. You're going to move forward and you're going to grow. But I think, you know, one of the most frustrating things about change, particularly when we are trying to change to get rid of acute and really quite painful circumstances, is that we want the pace of change to be commensurate with the pace of horror that came into our life that we want to change away from. When things are horrible, when we burn ourselves, we move our hand away. In the same way, when things go wrong in our life, we want to immediately shift to a place of competency and comfort. And that sometimes that shift is not easy, and we throw our toys out the pram when that doesn't happen. We do, because we want things immediate. But, you know, it's an oft-trotted out line that in 2022 we want everything yesterday, and that's quite true. Patience through change is extraordinarily important, but we've got to be very careful not to rush a process, not to miss bits, not to see ourselves growing and growing and growing and growing throughout something. Processes are hard. And working with clients to be patient, to notice their growth, to be grateful throughout change. And it's a bit like the film, the Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, isn't it? You know, the whole idea that they're seeking the treasure, but they may not get the treasure that they've actually set out to see. You know, keep your eyes open on the trail, and you may see things that actually really embolden and enrich your life in a way that you hadn't initially set out to do. And so, whilst that's a bit trite, the end goals don't really evolve, don't really exist as much as appreciation and process and growth and confidence do. Yeah.
So it's that thing that you mentioned there that I picked up on is actually noticing progress and sort of zoning in on things that you actually have and the things that you've managed to overcome, the things that you've managed to find through ways that you could never even have imagined. I think there is a need to hang on to that and to actually notice it, and it's sort of noticing your own progress in your own race rather than looking outside and looking at what things could be and what other people seem to have, what other people are achieving, what roles that they're playing. I think for me in specific, over the last few days, and this goes into another sort of thing that I wanted to talk about, but it's almost like that impossible standard or that sort of overreaching need and desire to achieve and to become something and to, I don't know, is it that feeling of completion that you're desperate to get to?
Yeah, I said it before. I think I said it on the other pod that George Lucas said that no film is ever finished; it's only abandoned. And we're kind of the same, Show me completion and show me the metrics by which we're measuring the vast majority of our social competency standards, confidences. And I hear the word "should" so much in therapy. I should be doing this. Who says? I need to be doing what other people are doing. How do you know what they're doing? How do you know what they're feeling? We seem to be fanatically interested, and on top of that, really, really accurate, engaging other people's levels of competencies and standards and abilities, but seemingly completely unaware of what our own successes may be. That can't be right. This is a bit of a paradox. All right, so you know exactly all the different metrics by which that person is succeeding, and you accurately can map out how you're failing. No, you can't. You don't know their struggles. You don't. The only thing you've got to do is work to your own set of things, and that should. The Instagram social media age, which we talk about and so often trotted out, but it's easy low-hanging fruit for me to say, yeah, we look at other people's life and we give it a look and we go, it's brilliant. I'm super grateful for the life I've got. I'm super grateful for my job, for my partner, for my little girl, for so much. But I don't bounce out of bed every morning with a song. And sometimes I don't really want to get up at all. It's this idea that we have to adhere to a standard that, because I have X, I should feel Y. And we beat ourselves to fucking pieces with that. We really, really do. Rather than understanding how far we've come, that we're part of a process, we don't forgive ourselves. And this is where we start to get into meanness as well around this as well. They've got it, I haven't. And then that, I see this a lot within social groups, that very, very uncomfortable but insidious schadenfreude where people take delight or at least some comfort in other people's downfall.
Yeah.
That's some dark stuff. And, I will work with clients for whom they haven't got a friend in the world that want to see them succeed because there's an echo chamber of misery and disappointment and people being fed up. So a really huge part of a good change and positive change is surrounded by people who want to see you do well.
Yeah. It's very English, that, isn't it? Very English.
It is. Dare I say, slightly northern occasionally.
Yeah.
Oh, look at them.
Northern English.
Look at them farting higher than their arse. How dare
yeah. It's true, mate. I mean, I've spent time obviously in America recently, and it's like it boggles my mind that I speak to people. And, once you get past the sort of native New Yorker stance where they can't really be ourselves and themselves, so they don't want to help you, you have a connection with someone. And it's like, do these people really want me to succeed here? Are these people really helping me out? Are they that supportive?
Like you've been caught on some sort of like TV program where you've been stitched up.
That's exactly it. And I think it's a Ricky Gervais film, or I can't remember what it is, or it might be something he talks about in stand-up. But it says, you drive a Mercedes in America and they'll be asking you how you got there, how you did it, how did you make it, and you drive it around the UK and they'll be ripping off the Mercedes badge. It's that sort of difference.
They're asking you if you nicked it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, where did you nick that? Can't I do that? So it's like it is that, and it is sort of the people that you're around enabling you or disabling you in it, I guess, in a way.
Absolutely. And I'd rather take a quiet, competent mind on myself and to go through processes myself than be badly vulnerable. And by that I mean exposing myself to perspectives and to input that either wasn't helpful, was malignant, or often at worst was not interested. If I'm going to go through change, we need our team, or we need to be resolute that it's good for us and we only need our own. And ultimately we do. The first things first, we need to start with our own sense of right and wrong and our own sense of this is okay.
So like when someone comes in then and you sat down with them and they start counselling, what's when they're going through change, or when they're thinking a lot of things that we've spoken about, like what's the process? Do you ask? Are you asking them to sort of voice those beliefs, to voice those shoulds, or to voice those failures of reaching a standard that they think, or understanding what they think success is externally? You know, is that what you're trying to understand, and then you're just asking them to look at it in a different way?
I think it's about stripping back what their definition of change is, really, or their idea of should. I mean, should's a dirty word in therapy as far as I'm concerned. It's that, you know, if you should, you could, and if you could, you can. Go do. Go do. We want to understand why you haven't, and it's often stuff around shame or inadequacy, previous traumas and previous experiences. Sometimes we're sitting within cultures or non-permissive cultures, you know, low expectation, having cultures, friendship groups and things like that. And it's about separating ourselves. But if someone's come to therapy and is challenging themselves to change and to feel different, as I said to a lot of clients, I said, you know, whilst being a therapist is not about telling people what to do, and is not about explicitly pointing out failure and saying, oh, well, it'll be that then, won't it? People don't come to therapy to have the belly tickled. They're looking for shift. They're looking for shift. The whole auspices around therapy is for gradual, graded, safe, ethical shift. And so easing clients towards that, as far as I'm aware, but once again, understanding what they want for themselves and asking the question, why is this out of your reach, is really important. But, you know, as you were talking there, I was thinking about the sort of terms and conditions of change. People say that change is really scary. But I think something that's really, really an unintended consequence of change is when clients start to go through it, whatever that change may be, whether it's jobs, whether it's relationships. Invariably, it's relationship change or questioning relationships. The terms and conditions of change often mean that when you start to grow and start to develop your sense of awareness, sense of self, sense of worth, as I said to you before, authenticity isn't just about empowering speeches. Sometimes we get renewed or even brand new senses of disquiet around our existing relationships and friendships, and we understand that things that for a long, long time we've had in our life simply never really served us, or certainly didn't serve us to the extent. Once we look through the world with these new eyes around our own worth and our own need and our own interactions and our own reciprocity, and the idea that we're only ever 50% of a relationship, any relationship. We're not people pleasing, we're not rescuing, we're not, you know, trying to entreat people to validate us. Suddenly we realise that there needs to be a bit of a clear out here. There needs to be a bit of a Marie Kondo type of situation. Yeah. This is not bringing me joy. On top of the change of me moving towards my goals and ideas and aspirations, I'm actually realising as a consequence of people not travelling with me, not showing me that reciprocity of kindness and concern, but also understanding there's an elements of toxicities here within these cultures or friendships or relationship dynamics. I think I'm going to have to make some other little changes. It turns out you wanted me where I was. You wanted to understand me and to appreciate, or to not appreciate, as the case may be, me for who I was, not a growing me, not a developing me. So we often find that a lot of change, unintended, the terms and conditions of therapy are is being authentic comes at a price. Through authentic change, you're going to lose people sometimes because they want the version that you were. They know where you are there, you're safe, you're known. And growth for other people, once again, as I said, in those Schadenfreude contexts, it's verboten. We're not supposed to grow. We're not supposed to get better. I've experienced that. A number of times. You know, as long as I was being relatively unsuccessful and fed up with my career, and I was at the end of a phone to talk about this, that, and the other, I was known. I dared to go and do my own thing and start stepping away from that. I had a few awkward conversations where you realise people are not as happy for you as your inner child who, you know, runs forward with his work like at primary school where you go, oh, give me a sticker. And your mates are like, oh, well, my life's miserable. How dare you grow? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, got that wrong. Didn't read the room. You've got to be content with your own sense of growth and your own appreciation of it, ultimately. That's why you did it.
Yeah. And we have things dropping off, don't we, all the time? We have things coming in all the time to our lives. And I think we get into the illusion that things just stay the same, and that, you know, that sense of joy that we felt yesterday is going to run through into next week. And, you know, the people that we have around us are always going to be the same. And we're always surprised, you know, when things do change around us. when it gets to the point where we need to change, do people put that off?
Absolutely. People put it off. I mean, I do. My lawn needs cutting. For about 2 weeks. I'm just looking at it now. See, talk about putting off things that we want to do, that we need to do, that we don't really enjoy. I got, yeah. And the lawn was there. I looked out the window. I was like, yeah. Mate, completely. We put stuff off because it's about who we are through the process of change. And we often shift from adult to child. We really, really do. You know, the paratelic, our child, our sense of doing something because it's fun and the process is collaborative and happy and enriching and fun and exciting. Yeah. And then the means justifying the ends type of thing, which is telic, which is adult, where often the process is detailed and sometimes a little bit rocky, but we know that the end goal is worth it. It's like going for a run. Although some contrary arse who hears this will go, well, I really enjoy going for a run. You're a liar. We never love going for a run. We never love putting our shoes on, but I certainly never have. And I'm prepared to make that a consensus view. But we always feel good that we did. That's when we talk about deep winning. You know, Dr. Pippa Grange talks about this. It's deep winning, that we're investing beyond the immediate, beyond that dopamine quick fix, shallow winning, immediate. As we talked about change, we want change to be quick in order to facilitate esteem and looking good and feeling good and, you know, pretending sometimes in some cases that everything's okay when it's not. That's a shallow win. We use the material objects around us to do that. And we heighten and emphasize those things in lieu of the fact that sometimes we feel a little bit empty. Deep winning is going beyond that and saying, you know, all right, I'm going to run for the next 6 months, and for the first 2 months, it's going to suck. Month 3 might be all right. Month 4 might feel good. And hopefully by month 6, I'm just loving it. I'm loving my fitness. I'm loving the fact I'm sleeping better. I'm loving my weight loss. I've made some new friends. But that's waiting for you in 6 months. It's not here now. And obviously, you know, there's a temptation to pick up the dopamine, quick fix stuff around food, sex, pornography, drugs, alcohol, gambling. These are all ways in which we can go, oh, I'll have a quick fix, thank you. But that's not happy. Yeah. That's not good change. That's immediate short-term buzz. And then that horrible disappointment of feeling, oh, well, it's over now. And with it, actually, have I made some poor choices? Have I robbed a bank? Yeah, have I robbed a bank here to pay for some sweets? Have I overshot a little bit?
Rob the bank of your own contentment. That's what you've done, isn't it?
Well, that's what you've done, you know, and, you know, that horrible emptiness that sometimes that we feel, particularly, and I use food as this one as well. I work with a lot of clients, and food is a real comfort-seeking deflection from change and the reality of our lives. And, you know, we're drifting towards the sort of topic of authenticity and bad faith here, which you and I have talked about before. But I absolutely, you know, that feeling when we go to the cupboard and we eat the food and we feel good about the food and we go, oh, it's lovely. I love cold pizza. Who doesn't? I'm not a cold pizza fan. It's cold steak pie for me every time. But I will go there and scoff it, power it down. Then my partner will go, all that pie's gone. And I go, yeah. And I am in child. She's not angry at me. She doesn't eat steak pie. She's a vegetarian. But, you know, I'm in child when it is revealed that I've gone and done the thing, because I know I shouldn't have done. And I know that actually after a stressful day, a slice of that pie was a little bit comfort-seeking. Yeah. But some people absolutely go there and do that because that makes them feel good. Some people do any manner of comfort ways to make themselves feel good because actually it covers up the fact that you know, we're feeling inadequate, we're feeling vulnerable, we're feeling exposed. Yeah. And actual seismic, systemic, wholesome change, which is predicated on long-term sustainable happiness, serotonin, not dopamine, is hard. It's bloody hard. It's miserable, and people might not come with us. And how many people, when a man stands up and says, "I'm gonna get fit, I'm gonna go running," you go, idiot. How many people say, I feel rubbish, feel horrible, I'm off to the pub. All right, I'll come with you. We get support for our dopamine fixes. We get absolute ridicule for a number of our long-term projects. You know?
So true. If you invite short-term pain, you get long-term pleasure. But if you invite short-term pleasure, you get long-term pain.
You know, if Noah had just said, it's raining, who wants to come to a pub, rather I'm going to build an ark, everyone would have gone to the pub. Rather than, what's that idiot building a big boat for?
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, isn't it, Noah? Jesus. Sit down, man.
He's not going to get all them lions in either. They're going to this is going to be laughed at, I would imagine, in about 2,000 years. But never mind, Noah, off you go.
I'd love to see a lion on a lead, Noah. Fucking hell. Tiger King number 2.
Yeah. So yeah, it's long-term sustainable change. We've got to believe in it, and I think a lot of the time we put it out to the masses. We put ideas out to the masses. We're looking for the people's opinions, and as we said before, the horrible reality is that very few people are really interested in what we're doing. That frees us up. That's a freeing thing. Go do your thing.
Just a quick one, guys. We have had 2 new counsellors join the team here at Mantality. If you are at a stage in life where you are struggling to manage your mind and it keeps affecting your happiness, it is time to do something about it. You can finally allow yourself the time to sit down with one of our Mantality counsellors who will understand what you are going through. They'll help you understand why you are struggling, and they'll give you the tools to get back to being happy and the best that you can be. A lot of the time, we just need to clear up any unwanted thoughts and emotions so that we can show up in life the way that we want to. Mantality counselling is available in Yorkshire, Lancashire and the South East, including London. Sessions can be in person, face-to-face therapy or walk-in therapy. Alternatively, all counsellors can deliver sessions via Zoom. Go to mantality.co.uk/counselling to start your journey.
You know, as we're talking about all this stuff, and there's so many things that are coming to my head, I won't ramble on, but people pleasing. You mentioned it a little bit ago, but people pleasing. What is it? Why do we do it? And do we need to put an end to it if you are a people pleaser?
Is it okay to please people? Yeah, of course it is. You know, the divorce rate's already at 50%. If we don't push on, no one's going to be happy. So in and of itself, in isolate, you know, this is about vulnerability. This is about understanding the people who are worth our time and effort. You know, we talk about the drama triangle, and part of the drama triangle is the role of rescuer. You know, we look external to connections, to situations where we can bring change, where we can look after people, often sometimes where we can save people from themselves. Mm. There are reasons manifold why someone would put themselves in that role or find themselves in that role where they go, you know, I'll do anything, you know, and I hear this in therapy, I'll do anything for anyone. I go, oh, really? Anything for anyone? Wow. We drop out lines like that willy-nilly, and actually that just, you know, whilst it requires a little bit more digging to be qualified, and often the client will go, well, not really. Actually, it just sounds unbounded. What we often do is we chase the wins that elude us, the quick, easy wins in life, the quick, easy people who want to be our friends, want to connect with us. That's all well and good. But we're constantly searching that validation, that top 2 inches, the people who are out of reach, the people who possibly treat us poorly, the people who are ambivalent about us. How much time do we waste on those people who really wouldn't give us the time of day? Mm-hmm. So we chase that. And that often comes down to our esteem. I talk a lot about attachment theory with clients, and it is quite a complex piece of work that was done by a guy called Jon Bell, you know, many years ago now. But the book is out there. It's very interesting. But he studied how children develop their attachments. I won't go too much into it, but there's about 3 or 4 different attachment styles. And we're looking to be as secure as possible. Ultimately, do we know our place in the world? Do we know our parental unit are there? Are we safe? Are we connected? Are we loved? Are we regarded? Are our parents coming back? How do we seek attention? Do we seek it positively through positive interactions and play and talk and communication? Do we derive it from negative behaviour? Do we seek to please people in order to get it back? And we start that in our first sort of 6, 7 years on Earth. That first block of 10 years where our expressive communication is really quite poor, but our ability to perceive our world around us is absolutely heightened and necessary because we're so vulnerable. We absolutely derive our self-esteem from that period, because whilst very few of us can remember direct lessons for our first 6, 7 years on Earth, we were shaped during that period. We were. And so when you see people pleasing traits, so it goes. And, you know, it's almost an exact science, but, you know, not every client presents this way. You will often find stories where people are compensating for a lot of the things that went on earlier. You know, absent parents, ambiguous relationships, often toxic connections with mum, dad, or siblings. And so we're going, the thing that happened, and it's a form of trauma because, you know, not to throw that word around too much, but the thing that happened was so bloody horrible. I can't have that rejection happen again. So, you know, the brain in its infinite wisdom, and my God, it knows what to do, creates an arbitrary style, not arbitrary, but a very basic way in which we're going to go, right, everyone who comes into our life is going to get the charm offensive, is going to get the help. I'm going to overstretch myself. I'm going to try and please these people because the counterpoint to that, the diametrically opposing position is, you've rejected me, you've made me feel awful, I'm not enough. And it's shame. It's that horrible word again. It's the shaming. So we a lot of the times in extremis, people pleasing is a way in which we preemptively hold off shame and we say, no. As long as I'm giving to you and being of service to you and being of use to you, you won't reject me.
And what's shame? Is that feeling like we're wrong or we're not worthy or?
Yeah, we're wrong. We're wrong. We're not enough. We're not enough. And so our behaviour becomes compensatory. The fact is, people don't want more than 50% of us. They don't. You know, good, healthy connections is that symbiosis, as we say. It's where I give, you give, I give, you give. Martin Buber called it I and thou. You know, I see your humanity, you see mine. And we interact that way. What I am not doing is I'm not going to splinter your, you know, or scaffold or support your life in a way that overstretches me, and you're not going to do that for me. We're going to be there for each other, but not for the exclusion of myself. And so when we do that, when we find ourselves overstretching, and often when we find ourselves asking friendships not to be what they are, I say all the time, when we ask a dog to be a cat. When we ask a dog to be a cat, we're essentially asking a certain relationship of a certain type to do something else. And when we do that, we often feel really rejected. But what we've done is we've subconsciously missed all the milestones. We've missed all the signposts. We've missed all the little indicators that tell us that relationship was never meant to be anything other than it is.
You know, that sort of links back to what we were talking about before in terms of change and looking around you and seeing if people are supporting that change and if they're there for that other side that you're willing to delve into or to bring out more of. You know, it's almost when you're going through change, you're having to go through those parts of yourself which are sort of untapped or aren't yet understood by other people or yourself. It's like a transition through that as well, you know, and dealing with that part of yourself with other people as well, you know, like you're changing and you're almost allowing more of yourself to be seen, which before it's always protected by that people pleasing or by that fitting in, if that makes sense.
Makes complete sense, yeah. And we can't change unless we give up often toxic people pleasing behaviours. We can't change because all we're doing is we're not meeting our value. Our value is like the mirror in our soul. Our system of values are like that mirror because it's the mirror which flatters not. When we overstretch and we people please and we seek constant validation through these actions, we move further away from our value of self-esteem, of self-satisfaction, of self-regard. Because what we're doing is we're chasing someone else's, and then we end up in a system of diminishing returns where the effort simply won't measure up to the amount that we get back, because people cannot do that for us, and it becomes an addictive behavior. People pleasing is a dopamine eliciting behavior. We get a rush from making people happy. We absolutely do. Ask a comedian when they walk off stage, or a good one, not a bad one. That feeling of making people happy on a wholesome level is absolutely wonderful. It's when we're using making people happy or meeting people's need for us to survive. That's the problem. That's the real issue there.
So what do you do? What's the work that you do then to bypass that people pleasing safety mechanism? You know, what do you do there?
Depends on the client. It depends on the circumstance. Depends on the issue. You know, good person-centered humanistic therapy should be client-focused. And I said to you before, I have as many versions of therapy going on as I have clients at any one time, because circumstances and needs should be heard, should be regarded, and we should move at a pace that absolutely suits them. But this is constantly about boundaries, not about shutting things down, but about boundaries. When we healthily boundary our life, what we do is we say, I want that, I don't want that. How far are we prepared to go? How much is overstretching? Are relationships that are in our life relationships that need to be removed? Are the relationships that need to be addressed? Are the relationships that need to slow down? Is my job something that I'm dragging around in complete bad faith? We've talked about bad faith before. Martin Heidegger's talked about this. It's basically the suppression of the obvious. The idea that I would turn up to work on a Monday morning and work 5 days a week, 35, 36, sometimes 40 hours a week, clock off on Friday and go, oh my God, I've just spent 5 days doing something I absolutely hate. And so many people think that's okay, or it's just the way we should live. We suppress the obviousness about our lives, that this thing that we go and do is bloody miserable.
But that's been normalised as well. That's been shaped into normality as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you stood in there in a country that absolutely does that gives absolutely so few working perks, in terms of holiday, in terms of leave, in terms of sick leave, maternity leave. Go there, churn out, keep your mouth shut, be grateful. Yeah. So what we do is we don't put our hand up and go, oh, by the way, actually,
I'm fucked.
I'm fucked. Show me another spreadsheet and I'll put the pen in my eye. I'm miserable. I hate all my colleagues because they mirror the kind of misery that I'm experiencing. I think it's Ricky Gervais who said, if you go to work on a Monday and you don't like it, it's your fault. It's your fault. And eventually it does become our fault. If we are going to entertain in bad faith the things that we are doing to people please, or that benefit other people and don't benefit us, then what we're going to do is we're going to suppress our healthy selfishness, which is that we have got to start prioritizing our need for change, our need for development, our need for growth. Spirit of jazz. If it feels good, do it. If it don't feel good, stop dancing. It ain't your tune. Move on. And so I don't. It depends on the client. It absolutely depends on the client. And I wouldn't sort of drift in specifics of psychotherapy here theoretically, simply because I don't want to bore people. And once again, it's in theory, but absolutely depending.
Stop pleasing us, mate. It's be boring.
Yeah. But absolutely, it's about understanding those barriers to authenticity and the possibility of removal. Because as you said, before we start working on how we deal with people pleasing, we have to establish that change is possible. False permanence, the false permanence of our lives, the idea that somehow our lives are not great and they'll never be. This indelible otherness that we have about ourselves as well, that we go, everyone's got it sorted out, but I'm fucked and I always will be. Yeah. We've got to start questioning that. And the first rule of therapy is that we will question that. We'll question that straight away. Absolutely will. Yeah, that false certainty that, oh, this is just how I am. No, it's how you've become. Let's understand how we've become this, the things that have enacted upon you, the things that have happened to circumstances beyond your control, your early life, your job, the fact that you're going to work on a Monday, coming home on a Friday, coming up for air for 2 days, going out drinking just to forget the fact that your week was shit, and starting the whole merry dance again on a Monday. That ain't no way to live, and it's certainly not the way that your 15, 16-year-old self expected your life to go. So you're dealing with a hell of a lot of unfulfillment, a hell of a lot of shame, and pretending that this thing is somehow palatable just because Keith in accounts puts up with it. No. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. And so calling healthy bullshit on that and saying it doesn't have to be this way. Let's look at possibility, client to client, depending on what they need and actually what they come for. Because I'm in service of the client as well as, being authentic and being absolutely, immediate and saying, I think this, to be quite honest, is really important.
Yeah. Jon, that has been mega. We do feel like we have all the control in the world. We feel like we have a certainty that we are fucked or that we are doing things wrong, that we can't do things better. I've felt that recently, mate, so it's very nice to hear that and to have it opened out and to question my own certainty with that as well. We will have another merry dance at this, I'm sure. There's so many more questions. I thought we need to go deep into one thing at a time, and I think that's the best way to do it, mate. So I think we'll do more of these.
Let's do it.
As a form of therapy for ourselves, but also for other people too listening. And I imagine listening to you, mate, the real deal is something that they might be interested in as well, as I very much am all the time. So cheers, my mate, and I'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.